Hello students. Yesterday we have seen conceptual problems related to ray optics and optical instruments, and today I am going to explain the conceptual problems related to semiconductor devices. As in that case actually I have only taken the numerical questions while I was explaining. So I think I just actually realized that here a number of conceptual problems that should be explained also, so that's why today I have taken it. So actually in case of semiconductor devices, as we are using uh, the doping process, mixing process, and also new types of devices can be constructed with the help of semiconductor, with the help of intrinsic semiconductor, with the help of trivalent impurities, pentavalent impurities. And also semiconductor devices has some special properties, and due to that properties means they are lying, their properties are lying between conductor and insulator. So that's why uh, they are as a you can say that they are as a bonding medium between insulator and conductor. So we can also make it conducting and we can also make it insulating. But how can we do it? According to that, there can be a number of conceptual problems that can be here. So I have just taken today that. So let's see the one by one questions. I have written all the questions on the board and I will explain that with the help of this. So let's see them. So first question is that the metallic conductors are opaque. Why? As you see that when you are seeing any metallic conductor, so that is not looking at transparent. So what is the reason behind that? Actually, you know that in case of metals, there are a number of free electrons, and that all free electrons actually absorbs light when light passes through or light is incident on the metallic surface. And if they absorb all the light, then definitely light will not pass through that conductor. And obviously if light will not pass through the conductor, then it will not look as transparent, it will be opaque. So this is the reason behind the opacity of metallic conductor. Second question is that these are very basic questions. Actually, I'm just only not this time I'm talking about basic bonds and conductor, insulator, semiconductor. Why we are choosing such types of materials, and there are questions based on that. So second question is that out of the ionic, covalent, metallic, and van der Waals solid, which will be widely used to produce a conductor, semiconductor, and insulator? So first, to explain this question or to explain its answer, first let's see what is ionic, covalent, metallic, and van der Waals solid. Here are new words like you are seeing. So actually ionic solids are those in which two atoms are bonded by ionic bond. Clear? It's very simple actually. If there is any solid that is made up due to the bonding, that is ionic bond, then that is known as ionic solid. And just like that, if two atoms are bonded by covalently, means they are covalently bonded, then in that case the solid obtained, that is known as covalent solid. So in the same manner, if there is bonding between the metals, it can be either ionic or covalent. So if it is between the metals where there are large number of free electrons are available for the conductor, so that types of solids are known as metallic solids. And last one, that is van der Waals solid. So as you know that van der Waals explained the weak forces, nature of weak forces, and how can there be bonding between non-polar polar molecules or non-polar molecules. So all these bonding has been explained by the van der Waals. And such types of bondings, if they are there, means if we have such types of molecules or atoms which we don't have the any sharing property, or they cannot transfer their electrons, like there cannot be ionic or covalent bonding, then in that case how can they bonded by them to bonded together? So that is explained by van der Waals. So that's why its name is van der Waals solids. And in that section you have seen that there are 5 types of forces, and with the help of that we can explain it. So here I'm not going to actually explain van der Waals forces, only just I want to give a wanted to give a brief about that. So if we have such types of solid, then which will be used as a conductor, which can be used as a semiconductor, or which can be used as a insulator. So as you know that what is the property of conductor, semiconductor, insulator? In case of conductors, there are a large number of free electrons which can carry the conduction current. Means in such types of materials, conduction can be easily done by the electrons. So as you know that in metallic solids, as these are made up of the metals, and there are obviously in metals there are number of free electrons, large number of free electrons. So obviously metallic solids will be used to make the conductor. Clear? Second, the covalent solids. These solids in which there is the sharing is occurring there. So while they are sharing the bonds, in that case they means there can be some of the free electrons, but there cannot be also. Means we can also add add electrons there, and we can also take electrons from there. Means such types of solids can also make ionic bonds and can also make covalent bond. Then means it simple means that they can also act as conductor, they can also act as insulator, depending on the bonds which they are preferring. So according to that, these types of solids will be used as the semiconductor. As you know that already the properties of semiconductor. So semiconductors properties are lying between conductor and insulator. And rest of the two bond solids, ionic solid and van der Waals solid, both solids are used to make the insulators. So I think now there is no confusion regarding to this. If such types of materials you have, then how can you distinguish them to make up? Like in place of these names, if I means in questions you can see the some of the examples of ionic solids, some of the examples of covalent, some of the metallic and van der Waals. Then in that case, how can you distinguish them? Then which can use as semiconductor, which can use as insulator or conductor. So in that case, you have to just remind this concept. With the help of this, you can be easily differentiate them. Clear? So third question is that carbon, silicon, germanium have same lattice structure. As you know that these all atoms are of the atoms of fourth group of in periodic table. So if all these are in the same group, then obviously they will have the same lattice structure. So if they have same lattice structure, but we have seen that carbon is insulator, but silicon and germanium are intrinsic semiconductor. So why the behavior of atoms in the same group that is changed? And also you have seen that in case of organic chemistry, most of the atoms that are most of the compounds that are obtained by the carbon only. Means the base of organic chemistry is carbon, and as in that case we have seen only very few compounds due to silicon and germanium. So there is a different properties they are possessing, and the region is the basic region, that is the size. Behind that you can understand both the factors. Like if you are talking about the electronics, then you can also understand it. If you are talking about organic chemistry, you can also understand it. Actually the basic is the size of the atom, and you know that the size of carbon is least, and after that the greatest size in these three, that is germanium as, and silicon is set in between these two. So if carbon, this is the size order actually. So carbon has less side, then you can see easily that it will be there will be the more force of attraction of nucleus on this atom, and in comparison to these two atoms. So if we calculate the energy band gap in these three cases, then these energy band gaps is obtained for germanium, that is 0.7, For silicon that is 1.1 electron volt, and for carbon it is nearly 5.5 electron volt. So when we calculate what is energy band gap, that is the energy between conduction and valence band. So that is known as forbidden energy band gap. Means if any electron needs for conduction, then it must go to conduction band from valence band. So that means to go from valence to conduction band, the energy which it is needed to uh, needed for conduction, that is known as energy band gap. So for germanium, it needs only electron needs only 0.7 electron volt for conduction. In case of silicon, it needs only 1.1 electron volt. But in case of carbon, it is needed 5.45 electron volt. So we can easily say that in case of carbon, electrons needed more energy, and this energy is sufficiently high. So we can say that this is insulator, because if the energy gap between conductor and insulator is very high, then we need a large amount of energy for the conduction, and in that case that types of material is not suitable for the electronic conduction. So for the electronic sense, it is insulator. And as these band gaps are low, then these are known as these are the intrinsic semiconductors. Means if we provide this energy, then there will be can be the conduction of electron takes place. But actually in case of metals, this energy reaches to 0.1 electron volt. So that is very low, sufficiently low energy that is required for the metallic surface. So that's why there is a possibility of large conduction. But in case of semiconductor, there are also needed a large amount of energy. So here conduction will be, but that will be not very sufficiently high. So to make it sufficiently high, we mix trivalent or pentavalent impurity. As you already know that the p-type and type semiconductor materials we obtained to increase their only conductivity. Yeah. So I think all the basics, whatever I have explained you, that is clear to you regarding to semiconductor devices. So the next question is also related to p-type or n-type materials. So as I have told you that there can be a number of questions that is regarding to p-type n-type semiconductors. So let's see the next question, that is n-type and p-type semiconductors have large numbers of electrons and holes respectively, but still they are electrically neutral. Why? As you have you know that in case of p-type material, we add trivalent impurity in pure semiconductor, and also in case of n-type material we add pentavalent impurities in case in pure semiconductor. So while let's see them one by one. In case of p-type material, as there is the impurity of trivalent atom that is added. So suppose if we have this pure semiconductor, so obviously this pure semiconductor has 4 electrons in its outer orbits, and if we are adding trivalent impurity to it, then it means that there will be 3 electrons available for covalent bonding in this case, and there is one vacancy that is created, and this vacancy has tendency to gain 1 electron. Clear? So there is the formation of hole. So in this process, hole is formed here, but as you know that actually this hole will act as the positive charge, means it has always tendency to accept electrons from the outside and to complete it octants. So but before accepting it, as the whole atom, like the whole germanium atom and whole trivalent atom, that was electrically neutral, then obviously after mixing this will be electrically neutral as a whole. But if there it will accept any electron from the outside, then it will get a negative charge due to that exception. Clear? I think that as a whole actually atom is neutral, so that's why n-type materials or p-type material will be neutral. There is a formation of hole that will act as positive charge carrier that has tendency to accept electrons, but as a whole if you see the atom, that is totally neutral. Clear? In the same manner, if we are talking about the n-type materials, like in this section, if there are pentavalent impurity that is added to the atom, so obviously in case of pentavalent atoms there are 5 electrons. Clear? 4 electrons make covalent bonds with the 4 electrons of germanium, and 1 electron gets free, and this electron act as negative charge. But as a whole, if you see the atom, that is electrically neutral, because we haven't take any ions for the formation of that. We have taken the pure whole some electrically neutral atoms for that. So that's why as a whole this atom will be electrically neutral. So n-type material, that will be electrically neutral. But yeah, these materials have the tendency to keep this electron. If we apply some external source, then this electron will be free, and then they will convert it into some ions or in charged particles form. Clear? I think that don't be confused due to the formation of electron and holes. These electrons and holes are associated, they are attached to the nucleus of this atom, and also as a whole atom is electrically neutral, and they are going to be charged particles when they lose their electron, or p-type material accept an electron. After that they are going to change in case of ions, or obviously you can say that these electrons when they will be free, then they will be act as negatively charged particles. So I think the answer of first question, that is clear. There is no need to be confused here, because as a whole this atom is neutral. Clear? The next case is that we have a this is the case is given, as such types of question can also be in your examinations. So you have to see them, and these are very basic question actually. So for this you must have to remind first what is the energy band gap in case of semiconductor, in case of insulator, in case of conductor. Clear? So here the question is that a doped semiconductor has impurity levels 40 millielectron volt below the conduction band. So is this material is n-type or p-type? So we have, it is given that a semiconductor material has a band gap that is equal to 40 millielectron volt. So as you know that in case of semiconductor, if you take the example of silicon, then it has 1.1 electron volt energy band, and in case of germanium it is 0.7 electron volt. Clear? So if there is doping, and in that case as you know that in case of pure semiconductor, these are the electron volts energy band gap, and as you are seeing that in comparison to this, these are very greater amount. So obviously we can say that these are doped, and also it is given that these are below the conduction band. So as you know that in case of n-type materials, doped atom that are below the conduction band, and in case of p-type materials that are above the valence band. So that's why this material is totally, that is n-type material. So you have to see only that things, that what is the case of n-type material and what is the case of p-type materials, and in n-type material where the electrons are situated, and in p-type materials where the electrons are situated or holes are situated. So using that you can be easily differentiate such types of materials, like which is n-type material, which is p-type materials. So if this question is clear, answer is also clear, then let's see some more questions on the semiconductor devices. So students, I think the number of questions which are related to semiconductor devices, that is clear to you. How can we differentiate n-type and p-type materials? How can we understand which of the bond can be used to make insulator, semiconductor, or other things? And if there are a number of atoms that are used as the semiconductor materials, then which is best for the which case? and such types of things. And also if there is the case of reverse and forward bias, then why in case of reverse there is high resistivity, why in case of forward there is low resistance, then such types of things, I think that is all clear to you. So if these factors are clear to you, then we can now let's see some questions on semiconductor devices, as we have already studied about a number of devices which can be made used by using PN junction diode. So let's see them one by one, what can be the conceptual problems related to them. So the next question is related to semiconductor devices, as we have already studied a number of devices in this case, like we have studied photo diode, we have studied Zener diode, we have studied solar cell, LED, and means a number of devices we have seen there. So there can be some conceptual problems related to them also. So first problem is related to solar cell. The question is that why are silicon and gallium arsenide are preferred materials for solar cells? So why we use these two materials for solar cell? Why we don't use other semiconductor materials? So as light radiation or solar radiation for maximum intensity have energy 1.5 electron volt. So this is the greatest energy that can be possible for the from the solar radiation. So that's why it means, and you know that if this energy is used to cause the photoelectric emission phenomena, or in case of solar cells, so for that the energy of band gap that should be equal or less than this energy. If it will be greater than this energy, then definitely this solar energy will not be sufficient to cause the electrons or holes in the system. So that's why if we don't get any charge carrier, then there will be no significant current in the circuit. So that's why we always need such types of semiconductor materials which have energy band gap that is equal to 1.5 electron volt, means energy equivalent to energy of solar radiation, or less than it, or that can be lower than that will be more better. And also one more factor that affect the solar cell, that is the high absorption coefficient. Means if any material surface, some of the material surface can absorb radiations more rapidly than others. Like if we talk about the colors, then black color can absorb light more means frequently than the other colors. In the same manner, if you can understand that in some of the semiconductor materials have high absorption coefficient, and some of the materials have low absorption coefficient, whether they have low band gap, like germanium and silicon, they have low band gap, but still they have low absorption coefficient, and they cannot absorb frequently large amount of radiation. But gallium arsenide, this this has actually high absorption coefficient. And also if you see, in case of silicon the band gap is 1.1 electron volt, and in case of gallium arsenide it is obtained as 1.5 electron volt. So in case, as I've told you, that for the materials which have only energy that is equal or less than this energy of solar radiation that can emit, that can use in solar cells, and as these two materials have that property, that we can use it. Also germanium can be also used, but here one more factor, as I have told you, that is the factor of absorption coefficient. So in case of gallium, the absorption coefficient is maximum than the silicon and also than the germanium. So that's why most preferred materials for the solar cell, that is silicon and gallium arsenide, and in this case this is the most preferred material because it has high absorption coefficient. So for this greater band gap, it can absorb high amount of energy. So that's why we always use these types of materials for the production of current to the solar circuit. Clear? And if I think this question is clear, then why we prefer it. If here is comparison between silicon and this, then in comparison to this is preferred more. Next question is that what do the acronyms laser and LED stand for? So first let's see, first answer of first question. So laser, actually you haven't studied about that, but laser is a device which is used to produce a highly monochromatic, highly coherent and highly directional light, and it can be highly intense, and it can be very hard, very soft. This in the modern era, lasers are very 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 efficient for us. Actually lasers, in case of laser, we don't need to produce any coherent wave, because lasers are naturally coherent source of light. And as you know that if any light waves that has property of coherency, then that will be automatically monochromatic, that will be, you can say that, highly high directional. So we can send the laser light from earth to moon also. Means such types of intensity of laser light is, we use this time lasers in surgery. Means it is used to burn very hard stones also. So it is used as a soft material to used at the hard one. There are number of applications of lasers. Only I just wanted to give a brief about it. So what is the acronyms of it? So for the laser, the acronym, I'm just going to write it. Light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So this is the acronyms of laser, and in these acronyms, all of the process of producing laser, that is given as, so light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Stimulated emission means, induced emission means when we supply some energy, or like if suppose that there are two band gaps, this is ground state, this is excited state, like in case of spectroscopy we have seen it. So if some of the electrons, suppose that it is excited and it goes here, and you know that after 10 power minus 8 second it will be automatically comes in downward, means and there will be radiation of energy takes place. So this types of process is automatic process, so this is known as spontaneous emission. But if we don't want to send it after 10 power minus 8 second, we want it before 10 power minus 8 second, then in that case we use some energy to give or force to send back them into ground state. So this types of emission is stimulated, this is induced, so that's why it is known as induced case. And in this case 2 times energy is produced. So here the amplification of light is taking place. So this types of emission is used for in the case of laser. So that's the name is that light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So this is the process of laser through which laser is produced, and there are still number of things that is called in laser. So I think as a brief this is clear to you. Next case is that what is LED stand for? This is light emitting diode. You have already studied about that. So this is light emitting diode. Clear? Next question is that name the factor which determines first frequency and second intensity of light emitted by LED. So as you know that the for the case of frequency, it is dependent on the term in energy. So this is the equal dependent on energy band gap of the material which we are using to make the LEDs. As greater will be the energy band gap of the material, then the light that will be emitted, that will be also of greater frequency. So this is the dependent on the material that is using for the case of LED. Clear? Second case, intensity. As you know that intensity of light, that is dependent on number of electrons or number of charge carriers in the system. So obviously number of charge carriers can be increased or decreased by the doping process, by the mixing process. So this is this depending upon the doping concentration of the trivalent and pentavalent atoms in the semiconductor device. Clear? So these are two factors that affect frequency and intensity of the LED. So frequency is dependent on energy band gaps, intensity is dependent on doping concentration, that is for the case of a semiconductor material. So these are the basic things which I think that is clear. So next rest of the things, there are still there are a large number of conceptual problems that can be asked. So next we will discuss the next things. So for today guys, let's end the class here. Thank you.